on Senator Vincent P. Martin. Senator, I think are you sharing time with Senator Riley?
I'm sharing with Senator Pauline Riley, who I understand is en route.
Yes, okay. May
I begin, by congratulating our new Minister for Justice and wishing her well on the road ahead. And you're clearly hitting the road running by coming into the House today as we progress this important legislation which will improve the efficiency of the administration of justice. I do acknowledge the work of the Court Service of Ireland in recent years in making the workings of the legal system more accessible to the public, and indeed the workings of the day-to-day administration of justice more efficient. And as a previous speaker, I think it was Senator Ward, said, the current Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Frank Clark, is a reforming vice, bringing us in, some would say dragging and kicking, but no, bringing us in to very much a more modern age for the administration of justice, where people feel part of it. A number of previous speakers, senators, have addressed different aspects of the bill, including the welcome reform for the coroners and section chapter. So I'm just going to very briefly touch on 13 sections, 13, 14 and 15. And section 13 is business records in document form and documentary evidence presumed to be admissible. The key word here is presumption. There's no automatic admissibility. And like previous speakers, I get concerned if there would ever be an erosion of our strict rules of evidence in this country, which are cherished and upheld day in, day out in the courts. So I welcome that because it's a presumption, and presumptions, if properly armed with the legal ammunition, you're entitled to refute and rebut. Section 14 of the bill, and I notice you kindly, Minister, give a mention to the Law Reform Commission, and I think this has its genesis from the report in 2016. And the Law Reform Commission is the unsung hero of the whole administration of justice and should be resourced and valued much greater than it is. And often their reports lie on shelves for decades before we get around to them. They're usually way ahead of the curve. But maybe with the onset of the pandemic, what they suggested in the report published in 2016 becomes a reality here. And again, we don't like to see an erosion of the evidential rules, the admissibility of business records. But I suppose it does bring us into a more modern time when this is important, and when they're compiled in the ordinary course of business. And there are balance and checks here as well. The balance and checks can be found at, I think, section 16, where the court, of part of the court in the higher courts of Ireland, of course, would be able to exercise its inherent jurisdiction. And it's very important that misinformation doesn't go out today. The nature of these contracts, let's say, in debt matters, often means that there's a summary procedure instituted, which doesn't mean oral evidence. It doesn't go to plenary. But there's no prohibition of a plenary hearing in this modern stage that you're taking. So if, for instance, a debtor says, I never got the money, I dispute the admissibility of the business records, the court will take that into consideration. The court will, apart from its own inherent jurisdiction in the higher courts, will consider, is the information reliable? Is there a reasonable inference that the information is authentic? Is it likely to be possible to controvert the information? And consideration is given to all the circumstances which may be taken into consideration or drawn from the information's accuracy or otherwise. So I know the intent of this court, of the legislation in many respects. But if it comes to personal debt, we should always remember that we have the personal insolvency regime and a statutory framework in this country, which is one of the most modern in the world, and it's a fair system, and it should be embarked. It should be embarked by and used by anyone in debt difficulty. As a handover to my colleague, I can understand that this will, the amendments will, in a sense, save unnecessary court costs. It'll become less unwieldy, and it still gives both sides the right to, it's not a fait accompli, there's still a plenary hearing entitlement if you can convince the court of its appropriateness. Thank you, Kerry.